All right,
Hey,
Jake, take it away.
hey, so my name is Jacob Andra. I run a search engine optimization agency here in Salt Lake City. Customerfaucet.com is the name of my agency, which is also my website, which is handy. Um, but yeah, we're going to talk about keyword research today, and we're going to use one of Taylor's companies, one of Summit Ventures companies, as a sort of case study. So just a little bit of context here about keyword research. It's not just one thing. It's not like a set of steps you go through. It's more like a set of thinking processes and tools and methodologies that you kind of use on a case-by-case basis. And it's very different depending on the niche or how competitive it is, established versus non-established. So for example, the company we're going to do keyword research on today is in the adaptive learning space. So the challenge is going to be finding keywords at all, right? We're going to have to really dig deep to find keywords because this is a fairly new space. Whereas if you were doing pet food or, I was talking to Spencer, 3D printing, right? The space is already so crowded that the challenge is finding the right niche, right? Finding keywords is not the issue. It's out of all those keywords, deciding which subtopic you're going to tackle that you actually have a realistic chance of even making a dent in. So very, very different approaches depending on, sort of what the company is. But with that said, we can jump right in, Taylor, and I'm going to probably ask you some questions as we go. So I'll share my screen here.
Yeah, I don't know which company you picked. Can you tell me?
Well, what I said actually applies to all of them. They're also niche, but I was thinking we'd go with Madras. What do you think?
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to set the stage, and then I may pull in some of our team members here to answer your hard questions.
Yeah, so Madras Learning, here's the website. And so, we start off by just asking, what does this company do? What are some seed keywords? And so we use, I call them seed keywords to begin to even look at the space or who the competition might be. So what would be some seed keywords? Maybe like adaptive learning, right?
Yep. Metacognitive learning. And Summit team, jump in here with any other input. But I mean, Jacob, basically they've got an LMS, so a learning management system. Chemistry is where they're focused.
Okay, so
it's a research-based software. So it was built based on research done at the University of Utah.
Research-based. Okay,
something, Taylor, about college or collegiate or the type of user.
Yeah, I'd also say like assessments or exams, because that's what it primarily does, and also maybe like tailored exams or tailored learning or something like that.
Customized, yeah.
Yeah, customized.
Outcome
maybe
focused. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Devin.
Maybe like something like outcome focused. They focus a lot on just the outcomes of learning.
Yeah. College students or college professors. Did we already? You said collegiate, Spencer. What, Jacob, in this, when you're creating these seeds, are there different, like, are you looking for descriptive words, action words? Where should our head be?
Just anything that we can begin to find, like competitors, turn up who else is operating in the space, what's going on. I mean, these are just, you'll see. I mean, we can start diving in and you guys can add to these as we go, but let's look at like adaptive learning platform, for example. So let's grab that keyword and just do a Google search. Okay, so what we'd really love to see is competitors, even if they're not direct competitors, people who seem to be targeting the same sort of thing. So we can look at some of these.
What's that cool stuff over on the right of your screen?
This is a Chrome plugin called SEO Minion, and it just generates other keyword ideas. Adaptive learning technology, that's a good one. So that's just a variation.
That's a cool plugin.
Yeah, there are a lot of little toys you can use to enhance, but the core process is the same regardless. I like to just open up some of these others and kind of look at who else is operating. So out of these, do any of these look like they might be direct competitors?
I would probably say adaptive learning is more of a concept that a lot of learning management systems use. So it's probably one of those things where most LMSs or many LMSs will tout that they're an adaptive learning platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a feature.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're not trying necessarily to go super deep into that. We just want to look at what does Google understand, because this is kind of an SEO slash AdWords, mostly SEO exercise, but you can also use the same for AdWords, etc. So what we're really trying to do here is understand how Google understands the landscape. So kind of reverse engineering algorithmic view of the space. So we can look at some of these. You can look at this Dreambox. But the goal is to start building a sort of, list of competitors and of these terms. And you go through this process with each term. And you can start weeding them out if you think they're not, really relevant. But then once you find one that you think is a legitimate competitor, in other words, really playing in the same space and competing for the same keywords, you can start making a list of what kind of keywords are they using. So they're using adaptive learning.
So Chem 101, I would say, is a really direct competitor of Madra.
Okay.
And I think that might be a product of another company, but yeah, if you just look at that, I think it should come up and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say that's a fairly head-on competitor.
Yeah. Okay, so let's grab that one. I'll put it over here. This takes hours. I mean, we're only gonna be able to scratch the surface. I spend hours on this, for doing the full scope. But there are some different tools you can use once you start getting competitors. One I like to use is called AHREFs, and it is paid. There are some free tools out there. I don't know of any free one that you can get this good of competitor data, but once you find a competitor that you want to really analyze, then it's good to plug it into AHREFs Site Explorer and run an analysis on it. But you can also do your own manual analysis if you don't have a subscription to this, essentially going through and kind of looking at what keywords are they using. Transform Your Chemistry students, Reimagines Chemistry courses, active learning approach. That's a good one.
So Jacob, with AHREFs, do you know how much that is? Is it a monthly fee?
Yeah, I think it's about $100 a month for the lower tier plan, and then depending on, and generally you wouldn't need anything more than that.
Do you have an affiliate link for us if we want to sign up for it?
I probably could form one. I don't have one right now, but yeah, I could probably do that really quick. So yeah, this looks good. Comprehensive learning and assessment. So you can go through manually and kind of understand which keywords they're targeting by looking at their headings, their descriptions. Synchronous online, so you could pair that with learning, synchronous online learning. summative assessments, algorithmic problems, right? So you can start putting together this portfolio, this kind of mind map of the types of terms, but we can jump right here now into AHREFs, and we can see that they are ranking for 2,600 organic keywords. They're getting about 5,500 organic visitors a month. And we can see here how this has grown over time. We can look at their organic search profile.
So can you see what those organic keywords are that they're ranking for?
Yeah, we'll look at that in just a sec. We can look here at how they've grown, and we can see actually that they've peaked here in September 2021, and actually they're ranking for fewer keywords here now, but let's just look at what those are. And this is really where you get, this is where AHREFs is really worthwhile. This is sorted by traffic. So they're getting most of their traffic from branded searches. In other words, people searching for their product. But we can come down now and look at some of the other stuff. We can also sort by volume. You can sort and slice and dice this a lot of different ways, and we can see what their position is. But essentially then you can export this in a spreadsheet and you can filter it. They also have filters here. So you can do some useful filtering right here in the tool. Then you can export and do all kinds of data analysis on this and essentially pull out the ones you think you would want to compete with them for. Then plug those back into Google and repeat the process, right? You can kind of create these keyword research feedback loops.
Jacob, are you able to see kind of the profile of the people searching those words? Because if we were wanting to distinguish between like professors searching for this and students, like we're going to target professors. Is there a way to figure that out?
Well, not directly, but indirectly, you know, you can begin to understand user search intent by looking at the Google search results. And so let's find one here that we think is especially relevant. If you guys see as I'm scrolling anything that you think is especially relevant, we're going to do some Google search analysis on it. So this tool is just spitting out every keyword they rank for. And of course, they may or may
Maybe
not
learn chemistry. I saw that one up above a little bit.
Which one?
If you scroll up, it was learn chemistry.
Okay. So, and that's got 600 searches per month. And that seems to me just on first glance that it would probably be more of a student user intent rather than professor. Seems to me that professors might be searching teach chemistry, how to teach chemistry, but I could be wrong.
You're probably right.
But it's still, this is still a worthwhile analysis. And so Google auto generates this module here in search results called People Also Ask, and you can get a lot of insight about a search term and its relevance and what Google thinks it means and what Google understands the search intent by just seeing what it auto generates. And so we see here that this would be a student user intent just based on this module, and also on this module down here called People Also Search. So learn chemistry online free. So Google auto generates this list of suggestions of additional searches that might relate, and it also provides a lot of insight into what Google understands this term learn chemistry to mean. So if we could find one that we think is especially relevant to the professor side, which of course is going to be a lot smaller pool of searchers, right? A lot smaller pool of people searching.
Jacob, does AHREFs offer a starting thing like try before you buy? Because a lot of times, if all you're going to need is some like concentrated effort for a week, and then
they do have a free trial.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Is I would just jump into the free trial, and then I'd grab all this data and I'd shove it over into a spreadsheet sheet, and then be be
done with it.
And a lot of this stuff that you're wondering about competitors would be done when you're analyzing things in the very beginning with the business model. Okay, what's the competition out there? So you would know who they are, and you could go right to their sites, and it would be very relevant then to take that information into this platform. And I like your idea about how Google automatically generates what it thinks the intent was. I hadn't really made that connection. That's fantastic. Great feedback.
Yeah, a huge part of keyword research is just typing things into Google and looking at the search results. And you can also click into these and, you know, look through them deeper, understanding like what these sites are doing with their headers or their titles, how they're targeting. But this module here, and the cool thing about this module is as you click one, Google auto generates additional. So this starts populating new ones. So a lot of insight to be gleaned here.
One of those terms was general chemistry textbook on AHREFs.
Okay. So that could be a good one to target. Let's just have a look. So obviously it's generating, Google's auto generating this shopping module, assuming people want to buy. So it understands that this is a purchase intent. So it's generating these shopping modules, and it's also generating this people also ask. And this again seems to be more of a student-centric term. But essentially, in a nutshell, especially for a company like Madra, where it's very, very niche and we're scraping hard to even find keywords, this would be the process. For a very crowded niche where there's plenty of keywords to be found, it's a slightly different approach, but still very similar. You're doing these research loops and tracking, you know, you just keep a document where you're tracking everything, competitors, keywords, you're plugging them in, and, you know, it's spitting out new results and you're tracking everything. That's it in a very simplified way, but of course it takes hours to do properly.
So when you look up one of those terms that you started with, the seed terms in AHREFs, what are you looking for on that kind of page on AHREFs that you can then pick from? Like, what are the key elements of their page that we should look for? Like, you started looking at number of searches per month, I think, and then were there other elements that we should be looking at?
Right. So you first plug a seed keyword in, then you're looking at the results. You're looking at a result that would be a good one to plug into AHREFs. In this case, I mean, I don't even know anything about this particular result, but let's just put it in for fun. So we're going to Site Explorer and putting in a new URL. And so your question is, what am I looking for in the results, right?
Yeah.
So you can look at all kinds of things, but organic keywords right here is a big one. In this case, it's telling us that this particular URL is only ranking for one organic keyword. So that's a bit of a dud. Also, maybe a little inaccurate because this showed up for learning management system for chemistry. But my guess is that this term, it has such low search volume, it doesn't even register. So you know you've hit gold when you find a site that ranks for a lot of keywords, because then you can use that as inspiration. See, this is telling us it's not ranking for any.
What's a lot?
I mean, there's that first one we tried had what was it, 2.5?
Yeah, 2,600.
2,600. Yeah, that's good for a niche like this. But again, a majority of those were branded because it was a recognized brand where people are typing in Chem 101 or some variation of that. So a huge part of those were, see here, this one is again, a huge part of those were just branded. So that's not super useful, but then filtering those out, right? We could have done a filter to actually filter out anything with the term Chem 101. That would have helped us look at that. But essentially you want to filter through those and find the good ones, the ones that are really applicable, grow your list out here, and then replug those into Google, do the process again. Like you can do these feedback loops where you're just growing and deepening your understanding, deepening and broadening your understanding of the search landscape for the whole the whole space. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you ever used any tools to do any of these steps that you're talking about? Like, are there keyword generator tools, or like I've played around with just copying all of the text from a website and putting it into a word cloud or some sort of mapping tool to see which words are used the most. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are. Like Uber Suggest has a free version, and so again, this is more useful for like a crowded space where there's plenty of search volume. For a niche space like this, it's going to be a little harder. I put in learning management system, which does have more search volume, but it's also not as dialed into what you're about, right? So then it spits out all of these, and you have to sort of weed through them to find the ones that are applicable to you.
What are the metrics you're looking for like white space in a market? Like you said, look for the sites that have a lot of keywords. Are there ways to identify, oh, we could rank for this keyword? It gets a lot of searches, but not a lot of people are using it.
Absolutely. That's not as applicable in something like this where you're offering such a specialized product. I would say you have a pretty decent chance of ranking for most keywords you would find, because it's just such a not crowded space. But again, as you said, if it was a space where search volumes were incredibly high and there were, tons of competitors that their SEO was very, very good, and so it was just really hard to break through, you'd be drilling down to look at individual like sub niches within that you could kind of get a toehold and start to grow and rank right away for those. And then from there, eventually, hopefully compete for the larger high volume terms as well. So that would be the strategy for a more crowded space. Did I actually even address your question, or did I go off on a tangent there?
No, I think that's helpful. I'm just trying to figure out different ways of identifying what our strategy should be. Like, should it be going after underserved words? Or the other question I had was about using these keywords for non-organics campaigns. Like, is this the same for trying to figure out what Google AdWords to purchase or otherwise?
Yeah, and Google AdWords, I'm glad you mentioned that. They do have their own keyword research tool that's free, and that's pretty useful too. But yeah, it's the same strategy, really. I mean, with some variation, and it's going to vary depending on the space and all of that. So again, I don't have like a definitive formula for you, but their Google AdWords Keyword Planner is a really good one, and their focus is on paid search, but you can still get a lot of the same insights and then plug that in. So, kind of do the same process where you're plugging them back in, plugging them into AHREFs, taking notes. So we could put something like this into this planner. Let's just do metacognitive learning for fun and see if it even recognizes it. And so they're spitting out a lot of definitions and examples. Here's metacognitive learning, all one word. Strategies. So this could be good, right? Metacognition and learning, metacognitive learning.
So like that metacognitive examples in classroom, 2 up from where you are right now.
Yeah.
It shows that the monthly change is a negative 90%. What does that mean?
They're just estimating that. I think that what they're estimating is that search volume for that has dropped 90% for the previous 3 months. It's pretty low. It's between 100 and 1,000. 3-month change by comparing the latest month's data with the data from 2 months prior. Okay, so there's your definition of that.
So if you were to look at this and say, this list and say, okay, we want to rank for some of these keywords, how would you pick which ones to then go bid on?
Yeah, so for PPC you're talking about, so you kind of just look at over here how expensive these are to bid on. You can see which ones are more expensive or less expensive, and which ones you think apply most. Like is the user intent really dialed in, right? So obviously, to take an extreme example, metacognition definition, you could bid on that, but is that going to be the type of user that's going to want to purchase your product? No, they're probably just curious what that means, right? So the user intent doesn't match. So you want to find one that user intent matches. And then and these are all pretty cheap. So I would say on any of these, right, you would be able to bid on them, but you just would want to focus on the ones that the user intent matches your product, and then so that they're more likely to purchase or request a demo, or whatever action it is you're trying to get them to take. Obviously, in your case, would be request a demo. But let's say that these were all over the map. Some of these were very high price and competitive. Then you just look at, of the ones you would want to rank for, which ones can you afford to? What's your budget, and how much are you willing to bid, right? So for PPC, you would kind of take that approach.
Cool. I've been hogging all the question time. I know Casey put a question in the chat, and then I'll be quiet and let everybody else ask questions now.
Should we go to questions? All right.
Mine makes sense.
So yeah, Devin is pointing out that SEMrush has a freemium. And yes, SEMrush is kind of an AHREFs competitor. SEMrush and AHREFs provide a lot of similar services, and it looks like Devin is saying they have a freemium option. I've kind of found that AHREFs works for me, so I haven't explored SEMrush a lot, but that's a good thing for everyone to keep in mind. If they have that freemium option, that could be a really good resource. But again, AHREFs has that like a 7-day free trial or something like that also. It looks like Devin's saying 7-day trial for $7. Okay, good to know. Casey says, this question might be too far out left field. Can this be applied to new niche markets where the competitive landscape is barren? Yeah, I mean, you would still do the same process. You have to get more creative because the data isn't right there at your fingertips. So you have to use, I mean, it's really hard to talk in hypotheticals, but you try to use proxies where you're saying what kinds of things would my ideal user be interested in, and what kind of things might they be searching for. So maybe your exact service, the competitive landscape is barren, but what other kinds of things might they be interested in that you can start targeting?
So maybe like find something in that realm and look what keywords they're using and try to like piggyback off of those. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of, yeah. It's really about getting in the mind of the customer. Like, what are their needs, or what is the job to be done, even if they don't know they need it. So you might be offering something completely innovative. There's no competition, but your ideal user, you still have to kind of get into their head and what might their problems be, what might they be searching, even if they have no idea a solution exists. They're still experiencing some kind of pain point, and they're still probably searching for something related to that. And so you have to get way more creative, right? And do even way more research if you're dealing with a landscape like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I like that kind of unpacking what the jobs to be done are. Jacob, is that kind of where you would also use that type of thinking to create the seed words? Like if you were just to put yourself in the customer's shoes and say, what are they going to be asking for Google like what their problem is? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, again, for a space that's already really crowded, like something like 3D printing, the work's already done, all the data's out there, right? You can get tons of search volume metrics for every type of 3D printing or every subtopic related to that, right? So it's all just there for the mining. So you don't have to get as creative, you just have to figure out how to analyze the search data that already exists. But for something where the search data isn't there, that's where exactly what you just said, you get more into their head, what is the job to be done, and it's just more difficult. You have to get more creative.
Cool. Anybody have any other questions? Sorry, I've been hogging all the time.
Chris is saying, if your website copy articles reflects the top keywords, does it influence your searchability significantly? Yes, I mean, in terms of, that gets into how to rank for the keywords, right? So we've just been talking about how to identify what keywords you want to rank for, but to move it to the next level, to make your website actually rank for the keywords you've identified, yeah, you have to have your website copy dialed in, and that's a whole science in itself. And again, that is going to depend on how competitive the space is, what your competition is, but you certainly have to have the copy on your site reflect the search intent behind those keywords or speak to that.
Do you have any suggestions on copy or content creation? Like, do you outsource that? If so, who do you use?
No, content creation is something that's very core to the SEO process. And so that is all done in-house. I oversee all of that with my own writers, because I believe, and this again is getting a little off the keyword research topic, but a big mistake that companies do is they treat content, marketing, and SEO as separate things. And really those should be 100% joined. Like, they should be completely informing each other and serving each other. But anyway.
Good.
One last thing, I don't know, and this is going to depend again on kind of the market, but is the only way to get on kind of that top page of Google, that first page, do you kind of have to buy keywords to be on that front page?
So when you say buy keywords, are you talking about paid traffic, like pay-per-click?
Right, yeah.
Well, so Google's algorithms are a complicated tangle, and they use many, many different signals. One is the quality of the content itself. One is backlinks. Backlinks aren't weighted as heavily as they used to, but they still do matter. And another is traffic. Traffic is another signal. And so that can be one tool in your SEO toolbox. I usually start with content, and I produce top grade content, better than anything else out there. And if that ranks, then the job is done. If we need links, then we start looking at that. If we need traffic, then we can run paid traffic. So it's one factor of many to consider. And again, it all depends on the space and the competition.
Can I just interject here on this a little bit, Jacob? Because
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you completely on the quality of the content. My family and I spent a couple of years in Italy on an adventure. And when we got back, I was really interested to know how Google's algorithm worked. And so I did a test. And basically, I created a simple blog, and I went after keywords life in Italy and living in Italy, which are very heavily trafficked. And I created this little blog, and I posted daily to it for 90 days. Okay. And the first time I got indexed, I was on page 167. Okay. So that's way down there. But within 90 days, I was on page 1, number 1.
Awesome.
And that was without buying anything. There was nothing there. And then my test was to just stop. I didn't post any more. And I stayed on page 1 for 18 months.
Wow.
With the content that was there. So that, now, okay, Corey, that was, a number of years ago, but they haven't changed their algorithm that much. They're always saying recent and relevant, but it was more relevant than recent, because I kind of left it. And it was a very interesting test for me that quality of content gets people reading and people sharing. And then, you've got different sites that are pointing back to you. You're not paying for that stuff. And it just kind of snowballs if there's interest in the content. So that's my contribution. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that was great. I 100% agree. And that's an interesting experiment to hear about. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That makes me think now every time we launch one of our companies, we should immediately start a blog,
Mhm.
at least for 90 days.
So Hallie is
You
asking,
can get me
how
to write
about,
some of that, Taylor.
Okay.
Hallie is asking, how about the reverse in terms of reputation? Would you clarify that a little, Hallie?
Sure. When you have, moving up in the search ranks is great. And for many years, I was the top hit for people looking for my kind of work in Utah. When you're dealing with people who have a sullied reputation or something that you want to bury, then it's like reverse strategy. How do people successfully expunge or clear reputation related issues, or make sure that those lovely photos on whatever social media platform someone posted on are also able to not be retrieved as easily, if not totally removed?
I mean, yeah, that's a whole field known as negative SEO, and that's definitely not my specialty. I do know some people who specialize in that, and negative SEO, I mean, the quick answer is you want to create more good content to float above the negative, right? So you just create a higher mass of good content so that negative stuff floats down further and further, gets buried further and further. In terms of actually removing the negative stuff, I mean, there are all kinds of dubious techniques that I've heard about. I don't really know in terms of actually getting rid of it. So that's definitely not my my area. But better good content that casts a positive light and buries the negative further down in the search results would be like the first go-to.
That said, Jacob, there are a lot of companies whose tactic is to do the negative spin for their competition. And if it gets a little, if it starts to snowball, basically you got to get out there by hand and report each one, because, Google says that it has to be, when you're providing some kind of feedback, it has to be feedback, actual feedback that you've used the product, you've bought the product, etc. And you can go through there and pull out stuff, especially if there's anything that kind of jumps up in the social agenda where there's like a group that's against whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah, I've seen that. It's horrible. I mean, this whole cancel culture, I mean, they get out their hateful keyboards and 3 minutes later, there's 4,000 negative reviews. You have to be very careful about how you treat that. But unfortunately, it's mostly bots on the other end. It's not people. So I wish it weren't that way.
Yeah,
no.
I mean,
Go on.
I was going to say, yeah, in terms of like negative stuff on the internet, right? It ranges from fake reviews, which like you said, you can report those and hopefully Google takes them down, to legitimate stuff that, maybe a news article, something negative about your company that is completely true. You can never get it taken down. You can't complain and get it taken down because it's actually true, but you would love to see it buried or, diminished in the search results. And so there's just a range of situations.
This is awesome, Jacob. I'm just taking notes on all of this stuff now that we need to do on each one of our companies. So is this the type of work that you do for your clients? Like, is this how you kick off a campaign for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, different clients are different in terms of, do they want to know the inner workings? Are they super interested in all of this a lot of the clients just, they just know that I'm behind the scenes doing all this. I just tell them, hey, I'm going to spend all this time on keyword research. Then we're going to make a big content plan. Then we're going to start creating content. They're just like, okay, go ahead. Right. They don't care about the details. But the ones that do, yeah, we'll walk through some of this process together.
Okay, very cool. Well, this is awesome. We've gone a little bit over time for our typical schedule, but really appreciate your time, Jacob. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they have additional questions?
Yeah, so I have a contact form and an email on my website. I'll just type, it's again, customerfaucet.com. So that's probably the easiest to remember. Just ping me on my website. You can also find me on LinkedIn. A lot of people here are already connected to me, so you can also message me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Jacob, thanks so much. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the chance. I had fun.